Want to sit in the middle? There we go. I get the chair here, and Lexi sits on the end. So, gentlemen, if you want to grab the red mic there, Bally.
I'm sitting on
Yes.
Your hands, love.
Straight away, it should be said we are on the lookout for a Lexi wardrobe malfunction again this evening. She has been worried a little bit about the trousers. So
My trousers are far too tight and I can't sit down. Which is lovely.
I am volunteered this information. I have to use it. I'm sorry. So, gentlemen, how have you found the day? Has there been a particular piece of information that you've either given out or that you've received that made you go,
Quite a few things, I think.
Well, microphone about there.
About there.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you.
I like Guy's talked up. Guy's always a good talker, very interesting. Lots of exciting things seem to happen to him.
So there we go, Guy. Pressure's on you.
Well, what I'd like to say is the public response. The public response.
That's much better.
That is the most important thing. And the commonality that we've got under common law.
Yeah.
And that is what it's all about, because we're all operating exactly the same as human beings. So that's what we're here for.
So, for our viewers and listeners at home, I mean, can you give us a very, very potted Reader's Digest version of the situation you found yourself in? Because it's theft of property by the establishment is basically the summary, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, Alex. Basically, a rundown of Guy Taylor. But, I mean, I was a very naughty boy. Oh. And when I was younger, I'd been in Borstal, and in 1991, I had a 2-month trial at the Old Bailey for defrauding the United States Treasury and stuff like that, okay? So I've not been a particularly good man when I was a younger man. But my father was a self-made man. I'm an only child, and my father built up a business empire over many years. And then in 2005, when he died, I inherited a vast thing in Hereford, a vast empire of his properties, all with no mortgages or nothing else. So when I inherited all this stuff, of course, I'd never really worked or anything else. I never claimed dole. I just did my own stuff. You know? And when I inherited all that stuff, having spent many years as a younger man in prison and stuff, and I was always a barrack-room lawyer, I'd always been interested in the criminal law. So when they started trying to attack me we had 27 properties. When they started trying to attack me for not paying council tax, I thought it was a bit amusing, really, because they can't send you to prison for no council tax. So I started fighting the system, and of course I then interpreted common law into that situation, and thought, hang on, Pat, everything I investigated, every single element that I investigated, whether it be a utility bill from the water board, a utility bill from the electric board, council tax, whatever I investigated, business rates, whatever I investigated wasn't correct. So the parties involved hadn't done their due diligence. Well, it isn't my job to make sure they've done their due diligence. They should have done their due diligence before even taking me to court. So I then started questioning, started arguing against the situation, and that's where we started the ball rolling. So for many years I started doing that and challenging everything that I challenged every single thing that came before me. And then the establishment themselves then tried taking me apart, because obviously if I've got a voice and people are listening to me, then they want to make me to look ridiculous. So, he's lost it all, he's just a bitter and twisted idiot who can't support his own family or whatever.
I mean, we call this ad hominem attacks against the person rather against the facts.
Yes.
Which is where we're at. Now, I mean, Bally, how do you fit in the picture? I mean, your interest is sort of linked but slightly different, isn't it?
I'm just average Joe, I suppose. I'm an optician. Well, I used to be a while back. My father, I had a trip to India once because that's where I'm originally from. About 5 odd years ago, and we've got a farming heritage there going back 1,000 years, and I thought, well, I think we'll do farming in England, because I live in England. So we bought a farm here, and I learned a bit of planning law, and I started to dabble with that. I did some commercial stuff, and from what I thought, I knew the law, that I had a right to put a caravan on our farmland as long as we don't live in it. So I did. But little did I know there was a confusion afoot where my neighbour didn't really like the planning people, and they had a history of arguments. So I think someone's put two and two together and said, oh, well, he's trying to do what he's trying to do, and we don't like him, so we don't like him either. So before I knew it, I was being drawn into a court process, and I didn't quite understand, because I was thinking, hang on, I'm a good bloke. I've worked all my life, and I've been a nice guy. Why have you been like this with me? So quickly I started to realise that justice isn't quite justice. Things are not quite what they should be. So I tried to figure out what court processes were, because I thought, well, I'm an educated guy. I should be able to figure this out. Can't be that hard. Not rocket science. So, but yeah, it was very hard, because every time I was talking in court, I'd get really unusual responses back, or not the result that I wanted. And I thought, well, hang on, how is this carrying on? So about a year's worth down the line, and getting an injunction on the back of trying to fight the main case, I came across this. I tried loads of different processes, which just seemed to get me more and more in trouble. I tried this guy's in America. I rang him up and on his radio show, and I asked a bit of help, and he said, oh, this is how you do it. So I thought, well, I've tried everything else, why not I'll do one more different method? So that's what I did. I just tried a different method, and it worked for me, and I thought, oh, that's really good. I'm a simple guy, I'm not very complicated. I just said, right, how much does it cost for you to come over here and teach me how to do it? And then we did it. I came down for a month, taught me, and then slowly, bit by bit, all the cases fell to pieces and all disappeared. And really, that was really where I started to learn in that time with Carl Lentz, was there's two different societies living on the same island. One's the legal society, and one is just mankind. But just to add confusion to it all, the language for both societies, the words are the same, but they've just got different meanings.
Right.
So, like, there used to be a game that I used to play when we were a kid, where we'd start swapping the words and meanings. So then you basically start having gibberish conversations, and nobody else can figure it out except for only me and Guy.
Right.
And then I realised, oh my God, that's actually why nothing actually worked for me in the court, because I was speaking just common law, plain English, and over there the meaning is completely the opposite. So effectively what you're saying is we have the situation where you go into a court and it is a foreign language to all intents and purposes. It's not plain English, it's not the Queen's English, dare I say it. It's something else. So how is the mechanism in place there to actually tackle this? Do you have to actually speak their lingo and beat them in their own language? No, because I'm glad you brought that bit up, Alex, because part of the time when I was trying to work this out, the more I was trying to speak their lingo and learn their statutes, the bigger trouble I was getting into.
Right.
And really, it was only after a while I was thinking, that makes sense, because now they think I'm a solicitor or a lawyer or an employee of the Crown.
Yeah.
So it was actually being drawn into the process in order to defend myself. But once I started to figure out, well, hang on, if I'm a man, how does a man act? And that opened up a whole new, different common law ways of doing things, of which, if you use the common law ways of thinking and doing and beliefs in an administrative court, you can't really be found guilty in an administrative court unless a man appears. So most of the time in all the courts, most people who have ever been to court, especially in an administrative court, there's never a man there. Or if the Queen's supposed to prosecute you, the Queen's never there.
And this will certainly resonate with a lot of people here in terms of other cases more recently, where we have seen the courts behave in the most irrational and illogical way, and seemingly managing to convince juries to convict without evidence. It's bizarre. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like I say, is it's interesting when you watch mainstream media for a moment. You'll see a case go on, and you'll hear the summary, but it actually misses very important facts. And that's why I have lots of conversations with Mike about this, and I said, let's arrange this thing once a month where I come on and I talk about actually what's actually happening. So half the time, say for instance, when you just substituted the word court, what court? A tennis court, an administrative court, or Queen's Bench, because that's where man goes.
Right.
An administrative court is where the fiction goes. So it's very important, what game are you playing on that chessboard? It makes sense.
Sorry, Barry. If I can just interrupt here, I've been trained into this mindset, right?
Yep.
And I don't think there'll be a senior court judge that will disagree with me. A good lawyer knows the law.
Right.
An excellent lawyer knows the judge. Because they make it up as they go along.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's happening is operating inside the statutory mechanism, which is what most people are unfortunately not the common law mechanism, because they believe that there's a different vehicle.
Yeah.
Operating inside that mechanism, they will make it up as they go along. And my friend Veronica Chapman says, rule number 1, they make it up as they go along. Rule number 2, refer to rule 1. And that's that's exactly what we've got. Right, okay. So what I'm not, and I know Barley, and I know Colette, and look, we're all working together. And the thing is, the reason why we're beating these people, and we are beating them hands down, is because we're all coming at it from different angles. There isn't a leader. We're all following like sheep. A leader, and they've got something they can put a barricade in front of. What we've actually got is people attacking them from all different angles. All different angles. And they'll take on board a little bit of information that Barley will say, or what everyone says, and they'll operate it in their own remit, and they'll get a different result. And they can't cope with that. And this is what we're dealing with. The machine is gone. And so what I'm doing is, I stood under common law for many years, so that was where, in fact, I met Barley through that, because he came to one of my court cases, and then he introduced me to Cole Lent, and listen, this is all wonderful stuff. But when I was introduced to what I'm doing, my personal journey, I've said, right, okay, we stop things under common law. So if you're trying to repossess or possess a property, and I've got 200 people here, you ain't going to do it, son. Simple as that, right? I don't care what...
Force of numbers, obviously.
Force of numbers, right? Okay, that's common law action, okay? Common sense action. This guy shouldn't be repossessed of his house, yeah? But on the other hand, you're claiming to come to me with some legitimate legal instrument. So it's a statutory instrument. So please present it so I can examine it.
Right.
Okay? And if it's okay, the door's open. In you go. But it's not. They're all illegals, right? They're wrong.
Right.
Okay? And this is where we're dealing with. So this is what our power is. If they're trying to evict you from your property, right, first and foremost, never mind about fractional reserve and all that. We know, look, it's all wrong and all the rest of it, okay? And that was what I was operating in for many years, under the moral principles. I was taking the moral high ground. But hang on, these guys are still coming at me. So what do we do? What do we do? I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll halt it with physical bodies, which they never thought that we could enforce common law. These guys, why are you lot here? Why are you lot here? People must have paid you to come here to listen to clowns like us. No, you're here because you know it's right. That's why we're here, right? We can stop things with boots on the ground, right? And then, okay, if you're operating completely correctly under the prescribed form of statutory law, and the statutes and the acts, right, must operate to the prescribed form. Otherwise, it's a common law offence. So, okay, we'll stop you with the boots on the ground, and on the other hand, can you give me your documentation, just make sure it's correct? That's why they don't give it you. You check out the YouTube, they don't give you documents anymore. You know what I mean? Because if we get them, we ain't letting you in. And, well, in fact, we wouldn't even give them back, we'll keep them. Because we know they're all fraudulent. And they're fraudulent. And I'll say that for everybody, they're fraudulent. And upon legal forensic examination, all these documents are fraudulent. They're operating in a private capacity against the British public.
I'm amazed by some of the documents, because a gentleman brought one up to me today to have a look at, and it was just amazing. I mean, there was no date on it. There was a squiggly signature, obviously not genuine, photocopied to the nth degree. But he didn't say whose signature it was or anything about it. There was nothing that made that document legitimate.
That's right. And I mean, if you take their rules, which I won't bore everyone, we're in a different remit here, but you can pull them apart inside their own rules. But ultimately, if you go to get your car MOT'd, this is what I say, right? And you come out of there and you've got the MOT, but the guy who's able to sign the statutory instrument hasn't signed it. So you come out and get your MOT, and he hasn't signed it. You go back in and ask him to sign it, yeah? Because that legitimises it.
Yeah.
If he said, oh, well, no, my work is done, yeah? Why not? Why won't you stand under your own work? And this is what we got these judges. If it's their work, stand under it, son.
As they are supposed to do.
Yeah, otherwise you're personally and privately liable for it all. Yeah. And I'll send the next bill to your house. And that's where we are. That's where we are, these people. We've got to stop looking at them as the law. They're not the law. The law's in words and documents, right?
Yep.
They're supposed to be there directing and putting it to a jury. You know, God almighty, if you ever get a jury. We have this public inquiry. I'll tell you what, if I can just say this, right?
Yeah, sure.
You know, the butler sloss and the wolf stuff, right? Okay, I mean, every day I get stuff coming through on emails, and someone sent through saying that Michael Mansfield should be the guy to run the inquiry, yeah?
The QC, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, he's a lawyer, I don't really trust him, but okay, all right, he's probably better than one of them clowns, yeah? And ultimately, what's happened is, all of a sudden, within a very short space of time, whoops, all of a sudden, it's there. And that's because of the pressure that we're putting on them. Yeah. We are putting on them. Right? Look, we've got a voice. We are going to sort these things out. So
excellent. Right. So now it is Lexi's turn to move amongst you and see what you have to say. As I say, we'll keep chatting up here, but it's a question of wave your hand when you see Lexi looking your direction. And if you've got a notepad and you want to scribble something down for her, fine. If not, she'll just sort of summarise what you've got to say, okay? And then we'll get a summary in about a quarter of an hour, okay? So it's down to you as to the questions, queries and comments that our learned team here. Am I allowed to say learned? Is that going to get me in trouble? Has that got a different meaning to these guys off planet?
Yeah, it sounds a bit too much like one of them, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. So these fine, upstanding gentlemen, these guys, these dudes, yes, that's better, isn't it? That's more street, isn't it? Yeah. I am losing touch completely with people under a certain age. I don't have children, so I don't get to hear most of this. But it's the language they come out with. And the latest one, and I was saying this, who has heard these people say, my bad? My bad what? They go, my bad, is it your back, your arthritis, your homework? What is it? Just my bad. And I mean, if you've got any like that for Lexi as we go round young people's phrases, which is just like, bleh. Yeah. Apparently sick. I think sick was had a different meaning for a time. Like it's really sick means, yes, that's what you should really be into, which is sort of like, excuse me? Okay, fair enough. Any sort of bits like that to sort of grab you and make you go...
No, but I suppose one way is you've got the two languages in the UK, so you've got legalese, and they've got their own dictionary, legalese dictionary, and then you've got, I wouldn't go by the English Oxford Dictionary, I'd probably go by etymology, so the original meanings of the word. So there's two languages, but the fun thing is when you start making up words, which a made-up word is really quite fun, because in both realms, it doesn't matter which aspect that be it a judge or a guy off the street, they'll know what you're talking about. That's usually quite fun, because if you can say that in a court, everybody knows what it is, but there is no sibboleth, there's no double meaning. But if you said a different word, depending on which language you understand, they have two different meanings, of which, if it's the judge, he's going to take his meaning. So that can be a bit of fun. You can play with that.
And the word hello, right? Hello was, I believe, I might be wrong, but Alexander Graham Bell on the phone, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So 100 years ago, no one knew. 150 years ago, no one, the hello didn't exist.
Well, I always wonder about Alexander Graham Bell. Who did he call?
Yeah. Who did he ring?
Who did the first man with a phone call?
Yeah. Exactly.
I've got a point where I went into Queen's Bench in London, and you can go see the practice masters there for a bit of help and pointing. Oh, yeah, fine, I'll do that, bit of fun. So I went in there, and I came in suited and booted, dressed for the occasion. I was prepared to do business. Mm-hmm. So I went in there, and I went in, and I said, all right. And I sat down, and he said, all right? That's not the proper way to speak. It's good morning or it's good afternoon. And I looked at him, and I said, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. I said, I don't know what culture you've come from, but where I come from, that's the way we say hello. Then he looked at me and then thought, he's actually not a solicitor. They normally come in with a suit and a tie. But it's just so much fun where you can start figuring out stuff that the way they jump to conclusions is the way we jump to conclusions. You can have lots of fun with that.
Yeah.
And presumption is the mother of all
ups. Yeah. Now, I mean, one of the things that we've been discussing as sort of a hot topic is the fact here we are on the 1st of November, the European Union is here, and they're taking 43 more policy areas. So, I mean, in terms of how this affects the judiciary and the court system and all that, I mean, are there things that immediately spring to mind for you that you think, that's going to mean this, that, and
yeah, because the whole thing is based on the fact that you accept the title as citizen. So if you accept that title, then you will act in a certain way. And that's usually a legalese word meaning part of the crown. So for starters, I don't care what somebody else does in their house. I'm nothing to do with that house. I just look after myself. And I'll carry on doing my way I believe, my beliefs, common law, I'll carry on doing that. But the interesting thing is whenever you go into a court, and they'll have their belief, and you'll have your belief, but common law will always override the other.
Right.
So actually, I don't care. In a nice way.
Well, no, exactly right. You can't statutarize common law out of existence, right? So simple as this, right? Okay, if we just take the Magna Carta, 1215, okay, and Parliament didn't even form for another 80 years after that, so they can't re-undo what's been done before, okay? And so that can't be done. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, like Barley said, it's your belief system, okay? And if I believe that there's, it's the emperor's got no clothes, and that's exactly where we are with all this stuff, right? So if we care to believe, what the worry is, and I think the worry is, is because I do accept that it's important in the national consciousness.
Right.
The national consciousness. People who don't necessarily know these issues, their consciousness is that, now we're completely overwhelmed by this or that, because they've not taken on the personal liability of understanding what they're talking about. And that's not... But that's just the way it is, And I mean, of course, they'll go and ask their lawyer for advice. We all know where that goes, I mean, lawyers are solicitors. They solicit, they prostitute. And that's why until until Tony Blair's government, they weren't allowed to advertise. I mean, they were told in the Victorian days, they said, well, listen, they're solicitors, they solicit, we can't allow them to advertise, my God. And of course, in 1985, they gave them the Golden Goose, they gave them the Bankruptcy Act, which means all these clowns are running around, robbing your life and robbing your assets, okay? Based on the fact, let me just tell you a little thing I didn't say earlier, which I can if I can.
Sure.
Which... This is incredible. The land registry, right, okay? Land registry is the wizard behind the cloak, right, okay, really, for the crown, right?
Another Peterborough-based
another Peterborough. Yes. But this is where you'll get something very, very interesting. Do you know that if you contact the land registry, which I do on a regular, I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 times a week, they won't give me any information because I'm not a lawyer. If you're a conveyancing lawyer, you have a thing called a key account.
Right.
A key account. and a conveyancing lawyer, and we've got solicitors working with us now in office.
Oh, right.
Have told us that just by a phone call, if you're a conveyancer with a key account, you can change your property into your property over the phone, because they're honourable people.
Good Lord.
And that's what's going on. So we've got to realise that the land registry is our... Hey, look, they're not there to register our stuff, they're registering stuff for the other side.
Yeah, I think the original idea was a good idea because it was a record, so we'd know as the Doomsday Book, or it was a record. But somewhere along the line, you know, the legalese Crown side came in and they've changed it to their own benefit. But the interesting thing is whenever you go back to the land registry, the word registry is funny, I have an issue with that, because you only register something as in an ownership to somebody else. But hang on, wasn't I supposed to put it on my name? No, we're going to put it on somebody else's name. The Crown's going to own it. Somebody else is going to own it. Oh, no, actually, I don't, that doesn't benefit me. But the interesting thing was, the original idea, if you just have the basic idea and say, you know what, no, it's just a record. Right, I'm just going to want you to make sure to notify you, kind of put a pin in a post on a wall, that this has now occurred. And I need you, or I require of you, to take notice that this transaction or this has now occurred. They have to do it, but might give you a bit of a hassle. But you'd say, well, you know what? You're there to record things. That's all you're there for. Anything else, fine, whatever. You've got to do that. That's fine. Doesn't bother me. But in the meantime, you will do it, and they will. They'll send you a letter saying it's noticed, and that's actually done. Because at the end of the day, even like with my case, which was a funny one, where the land was actually recorded at the land registry on my dad's name. Right. But later on, I realised, oh, hang on, there's no such thing as ownership for starters. That makes no sense, because land cannot be owned because we derive from the land. That means slavery occurs. That means I can own a guy here, and that can't happen. So you can never own land. So what is exactly a land record or registry? It just means that somebody's got possession of it. They're there. They're over there somewhere. That's all. So you have to understand what its original function is, and realise, well, you know what, it's really nice what you've been adding on for somebody else's benefit, but for me, I just need you to make a note of it, so later on in 10 years' time, if there's any question, I'm going to point them back to you, and you're going to produce that letter that I noticed you with. Yeah. So you make it your own use.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the thing is, both of you guys have literally had the cojones, as a friend of mine would say, to actually sort of stand up there against the system and the established way of doing things and call it all into question. But I have to ask, and I know that a lot of people will be in the same boat in terms of their reaction to this. What was the most fearful part of this journey of both of you? Where did the fear really kick in, and at what point did you alleviate that? What was the turning point?
If I can answer that, right? Yep. The fact I've done years in prison as a younger man. Okay? Yep. So, you know, quarter of a century ago, and I've stood at the Old Bailey doing 5 years, had a 2-month trial, and looked at another 10. Okay? Yeah. The fear in my life came when I realised that what the illusion or delusion that I was leaving my children and my grandchildren, which my father worked all life to leave me, was bullshit. And that I was leaving them something that was absolutely, they had to maintain in a hamster wheel other people's lives based on that, okay? So my fear was leaving my children and my grandchildren something that wasn't real.
Right.
Yep. Something that wasn't real.
And I'd say it's pretty much the same as well. I'd say the fear was that up until then, that my dad had worked three jobs pretty much most of his life in England to get an asset of which potentially we're going to be landed with a bill of which will cause a sale of asset. So I was thinking, well, am I doing this right here? But like I say, it all came down to words. Dad was actually a title holder, which means actually a tenant. Right. So although in the court case they said, but the owner did this, the owner did that, but they never actually said, oh no, he's the owner. So it's a trick of words. So all it was is later on you just clarify it and you say, oh, okay, yeah, I suppose, yeah, he is the tenant. But I'm the owner. Owner means who's got possession of it today, who's using it. Oh, it's me. Oh yeah, it's me. Me you want? Oh, no, we don't want you. You speak good English, and you know this common law stuff, and we want the guy who can't speak English, who can't defend himself. So, yeah, I think there was that fear factor where you have that realisation. You think, oh, this could end badly, and this could be a massive debt. How do we pay that? Or we'll have to sell. But like I say, eventually, I suppose there's got to be a stubborn streak in us.
Yeah. I mean, how do you get a word? Let's get a word.
Yep.
How do you get a word? You spell the word.
Harry Potter.
So okay. Yeah. And then when you realise that everything inside the court system, the judiciary and the establishment is all connected to electricity and water.
All right.
Right. So
Charge.
I'm in the dock. I'm on a charge. There is a circuit judge. Right. I have a bank account. It is current. Everything is connected to electricity and water. Once you realise a simple thing like that, then everything's simple. I always say this, and it's not me saying it, but Terence McKenna, right, a wonderful guy, right, said, if it ain't simple, you ain't thought about it long enough. And that's exactly what we've got on our hands. When you think about things, oh, that's too complicated for me, I'll let a lawyer deal with that. But of course, they've got into the culture of, I'll make a few quid, you don't know about it, here we go. And this is the problem in this country, once self-litigants started questioning the establishment, because they haven't dusted off their books and looked at them because they didn't need to. I did 7 years in school, not to have to dust them books off.
Yep.
Well, we're there and we're greedy and we're hungry for it, okay? And we'll batter them, and I'll tell you what, and I don't say this lightly, there are people in this country, if you've got people like Michael Doherty, Neil Heffey, Barley, myself, I'd put any of them, and I'd lay the challenge down, any of them, let's get in a court, let's sort it out, right? If you believe what you say, then stand under it, right? Under full commercial liability. But they won't. Because ultimately they know that they're wrong. And this is what we've got. And they've been fooling us with words, thinking that we're clowns, right? Okay, well, the chickens are coming home to roost. And unfortunately for them, the public are waking up. Everybody is here because they know something. And we're having them this year, kids. Right, okay?
Now, in terms of, it's always a question that people ask on chat show formats. You can see it. Wassy would ask this sort of questions as to people who have really, really influenced you. I mean, in your quest for an alternative way of looking at things, are there particular names that stand out that people should investigate?
Yeah.
Your name?
What, do you want to go first? Or?
Well, I'd say initially at the beginning time, I used to watch a few YouTube clips of you, mate. But that's stroking his ego because he's next to me. There you go, online. But you owe me a pint later for that.
Scotch. Yeah.
But I mean, there's quite a few famous faces in here, to be honest. Which is a shame you can't turn some of the cameras around. Some of the guys at UK Column and yourself as well. But for me, I suppose my story for anybody who's followed it has been Carl Lentz, because without that knowledge and without that understanding what the trick and the spells was, because he's an interesting guy, because I noticed when I used to ask him a question, never used to give me an answer, and used to think about it, do something else, watch the way I did that, and realise, I need to modify the way I'm going to teach this guy, because he's more of a practical person, or he's more touchy-feely. And really, I've got him to thank for that, because until it clicked in my head, then I got the joke. Then I was like, oh my God, this is so funny.
Well, for me, spending years in jail, Buddha, okay, and because Buddhism isn't a religion, it's a discovery of self, right?
Yep.
And I used to read religion and that, and thinking, because I was doing 5 years, and I'll look into this stuff, and then Buddhism made a lot of sense, right? Because a sentence like, "He who expects nothing is seldom disappointed." Well, when I used to go for my parole, knowing that I wasn't going to get it, that meant a lot to me. Okay, so. And, there are stories of, like, it will pass, right, okay? Because it doesn't matter what the problem is. There's an old story of a king, and he's decided that he's going to get his goldsmith to make a ring. And he said, I'm sick of when I win a battle, I get too egotistical and start causing chaos. And when I lose, I get too depressed. So I want you to make me a ring to square me up, to level me off. And you've got till Friday to do it. Yeah. And if you don't do it, he said, I'm going to cut your head off. So the guy thinks, what am I going to do? And he came back and he had 3 words in the ring. And the 3 words, it will pass. Doesn't matter how bad it is, how hot, it will pass. So that to me made a lot of sense. But coming into the law and the common law and stuff, you know, I first grasped this and I was listening to Robert Menard stuff.
Oh, Canadian
right.
Yeah.
And Robert Menard to me is like, and everyone I know from back those years ago, that was where we got the starting block. There was nothing in the United Kingdom.
No.
And, you know, now...
Because he's Canadian, I think.
He's Canadian, yeah. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't think we probably get on a personal level. But listen, I mean, that guy, totally taught us. But, of course, we're all looking for someone in the United Kingdom who's done something. And I was listening to Mark Stevens stuff, which, I mean, Mark Stevens is great because Mark Stevens does things, the No State Project, you know. Right. If you're taken to court by the state of Arizona in America, right, am I being taken to court by a geographical location? You know, I mean, what is it? You know? Yeah. And so I try to be a hybrid of these things rather than let's not be partisan. There are no gurus, right? Let's be partisan. Take what information we get and use it for our own personal journey. So to me, they were brilliant. And then when I started challenging because I wasn't frightened because I've done prison, and to me it was like, can they send me to prison today? No, it's council tax. Why am I here? Yeah, you know, to me, I was looking at it from a different perspective.
That's it. Yeah.
But then, of course, Veronica wrote a book, you know, an amazing book, you know, Freedom. It's more than a 7-letter word, and all of a sudden, there's someone in this country. Never mind telling me it's an interpretation, Canada, America, whatever. There's someone in this country. So back in them days, you know, when I had, I had a few quid and a bit, I said, get that person over to me. And Veronica came over, awesome character, and you know, and from that moment, I met Roger and I've met, you know, John Hurst, and everyone's different. I mean, John Hurst is a fount of knowledge, okay? Yeah. You know, Roger Hayes has got balls bigger than John Wayne Saddlebags, okay? And
that explains how he's walking at the moment.
That's right, yeah. But I mean, these characters, you know, and we've all got different paths and journeys, and then when we did the Burke and Ed thing, it was, hopefully was a party to being the oil in the works of all this machinery with Brian and with, you know, with John and getting everybody together and saying, look, let's get this sorted. And when we did that thing in Birkenhead, it meant something. It meant something. And then we went for a couple of years with nothing happening. Yeah. But I mean, all of a sudden now, and of course I've got friends, Ben Gilroy over in Ireland. One time I used to think the Irish have got it and we haven't. Yeah. Because they're on it. Yeah. But I mean, now we've got it here now. And this is what this response stuff and that is. We've got it. It ain't going away. The genie ain't going back in the bottle, and we're going to keep pushing forward. So, I mean, you know.
Good stuff. I have a clock down here, and I've noticed we're now 40 minutes through our 90 minutes already, which is just like, oh my giddy aunt. Has Lexi been kidnapped? Oh, there you are. Do come back and join us. Want to have some feedback here, so here we go. So, what's... Oh,
can you hear me? Oh, yes, you can hear me.
Do come and join us. Oh, you're on black now, then.
I'm
there we go.
Yes. Right.
The red one's gone gaga. Right.
Let me just sort out my trousers. Right.
That's an in-joke from anyone who was watching live the other week. Yes.
Okay. So I've got lots of comments. If I can read my handwriting, I will tell you them. Jamie over there says, "Who's to blame?"
For
everything. What we were talking about earlier.
I mean, I've got a point on this, and this has basically been where my change in my life direction came in. When anybody says who's to blame, the first person I blame is me.
Yeah.
I'm to blame. Whatever it is, whoever's done whatever else. We can easily impart the blame here, there, and everywhere. Take command of your own life.
Yeah. I totally agree, but what's happened is it's the culture. So, and I use this as an explanation. if me and you, Alex, went to get a job in a factory where all these guys...
I thought you were going to say going to get a drink, but that's later.
Okay, no, in a minute, yeah?
Yeah.
But if we went to get a job in a factory,
Yeah.
and the boss would come down, and all these guys were on the work floor, okay? And the boss would say, move that there, do this, do that, do that. We do exactly what the boss says. It wouldn't be very long for all these guys to come over and go, what are you two twats doing? Don't do that, do this. Okay, and they'd show us all the shortcuts. And we go, oh, okay, fair enough. Now, in a very short space of time, we'd be getting the new employees, and what we'd be doing is telling them what to do there, okay? It's the culture, okay? And so the culture, as Terence McKenna say, culture is not your friend, right?
Yeah.
And so, to me, yes, you're right, individual responsibility, taking individual responsibility is ultimately the first thing.
Yeah.
But then you get sucked into the culture. And if we're not going to argue against a workforce like that, are we? We're going to do what they're doing, yeah? Standard procedure. Standard procedure is in prescribed form. We might be given the rules set out, but we can cut corners. So, that's my answer to that.
Well, I know exactly what you mean. I have to say, I left the civil service after 20 years because I refused to conform any more to the claptrap they were doing. And case in point, they were wanting to issue, I should say, a booklet on climate change. And being the role I had, I said, you can't put this out. There are 5 major errors which will have you torn to shreds on the first page alone. I don't need to read any further. This is going to get you in real trouble, and you're not going to be thanked by anyone for putting this out. They finally released it about a month after I left the organisation in question. And they didn't even issue a press release to say they'd put it out. It was completely and utterly hidden. You have to try really hard to find it on the website. Someone, somewhere, actually took a bit of notice.
I was just going to mention, just going back to the original point was, I normally look at myself and think, God, what have I done wrong that this guy has the need to do something wrong to me? So I never point a finger at somebody else. I just think, right, how can I rephrase it to make it clearer? Maybe I've used the wrong word. What other word can I use? Until you reach a happy medium where you say, oh, you know what? I'll go this way and you go that way. But I always look this way first rather than that way, because you're never going to get anywhere. That's controversy. You'll always end up in court.
I mean, it is true there are certain individuals in society where it doesn't matter how you try to accommodate them. They will trump you with a stroke of madness and or idiocy, which just takes the biscuit and you just go, I'm sorry, we're out of here, goodbye.
Well, I always tell my children and my grandchildren to put yourself in the other party's shoes, no matter what the situation. No matter what the situation, put yourself in their shoes, try and see it from their perspective. But of course, you can't do that with psychopaths.
That's it. That's absolutely it.
So you can. It's a very quick conversation.
But that's the problem, isn't it? That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I've got a message from Nikki from Leamington. Is there a danger that when you stop an eviction with boots on the ground, it will be called mob rule? Mob rule.
No, that's intriguing, isn't it?
I'm not finished. And is this where and how this could be attacked, and why it's important to be peaceful?
So peaceful protest that all ends.
Very important.
Yeah.
Mob rule is democracy. That's what it is, right?
It's intriguing.
Yeah. Mob rule is, I mean, if you actually read Plato the Republic, which spending too much time in jail I have done, it goes through stages, So you have, again, I might get this wrong now because it's been a few years, but it goes from tyranny, and then it goes into oligarchy, tyranny, democracy, and it keeps flowing around. But of course, revolution, okay? The problem with revolution, it keeps coming round, doesn't it? We don't want that, do we? Let's sort it out. We don't need things to keep coming round. Oh, yeah, we'll sort it out now, and 200 years down the line, it'll be wrong again. We need to sort it out now. So, the whole thing, the whole concept of that, boots on the ground, I appreciate. They have got no answer to it, same as they've got no answer to Article 61. That's why
of Magna Carta.
That's why when we did the Birkenhead thing, Roger and that made sure that, and John and everybody else, made sure that they were delivered documents, so they realised that we were doing it under common law. And of course, it's over their head. We could have been charged with kidnapping a judge, but there'd have been 600 defendants and one judge, wouldn't it? Yeah. I mean, ultimately, right, okay, and so this is where we are. At the end of the day, this is our country. It's not theirs. I know they'd like it to be that, but it's not.
But that's always the key bit. It's always constantly to trying to persuade you, put sugar on top. What about if I put sprinkles on? Come on, will you believe it? No. What about if I did this? What about if I did that? What about if I had a lovely little badge? Until you believe it. But half the problem is that we're too trusting. Mankind is too trusting, and we just think, oh boy, it must be right then.
Because we take it from our own perspective.
Yep.
I wouldn't do that, so goodness me, nobody else would do that, yeah? I mean, how can I... Oh, Tony Blair must be a decent bloke in his art. You know, you know what I mean? So, but this is where they came at us from, okay? Because they're looking at us to look in the mirror at ourselves, right? And that isn't what they're projecting. You know, they're projecting evil and criminality.
Yeah. But the other thing is, they're also projecting is a person and a man are two separate things. They can't be the same because they're two different words. A person is persona, a mask. They have a duty and responsibility to a job role. So if it's a judge, he's got to do a judge's role.
Yeah. Even your identity. If you check it out, it's the ego and the id. It is the entity of the id entity. So I mean, again, it's all wordsmith stuff, and you know. But check it out, because if I want to know the source of the River Wye where I come from, I walk upstream to see where it's coming out of a spring. Yeah. You check the source, and so if you were a dealer in any product, you want to know exactly what that product's made up of. Otherwise, you're just a merchant. You go and you check the source. But that's what being a sorcerer is all about, as far as they're concerned. You know, and all the words, you know, we say them, we don't realise the connotations they've got attached to them. But that's the way we are. That's the way we've been brought into this sort of situation. And you know.
And there's more.
Oh, there's lots more. I'll try and get through them all. Manerg says, what I found most interesting today was defend and protect the right to bear arms, and I was surprised and pleased it was discussed today. Yes, so that's what they liked. Milton's...
I mean, let's just take a little straw poll on this. Who would feel safer with a shotgun in their house? That which has been proven virtually a good 2/3, I think. Thank you. Which just shows you. I mean, I get into a lot of trouble, basically saying I wish my old man had kept his 12 bore and 410, and not handed them in when we had that ludicrous amnesty, as they called it. But basically because I could fire both quite well. That clay pigeon shooting, if you want to win a contest, get me on your side. But anyway, there we go.
I was just going to say, just to add on to that, there's certain inherent advantages, obviously, being prepared. But you can't run your life in a nanny state just for one crazy guy up somewhere in the other side of the country who did something crazy. Also, that means we've got to take it away from everybody. What, are you saying we're all as crazy as that guy? No. There's no big conspiracy. There is no big giant beast. There's only, man on man. It's just me and him. If we get along, we carry on. Brilliant. If we don't get along, right. We need to have words.
And it's responsibility, isn't it? Yeah. And the most armed nation in the world
is the
Swiss. In fact,
there you go.
In fact, it's against the law not to have a gun in Switzerland, just in case someone invades. Oh no! Check it out.
Alex Jones did that brilliant interview where he completely slated that, I think it's Piers Morgan's, but it was brilliant because he was really there to railroad him, and did he get a railroading by pulling out facts like that? And he's thinking,
but it's true, in Switzerland, just in case someone comes over the border, because we're so neutral, we have to have, if you haven't got a gun in there, then you're a problem against the state. So, I mean, where do we go with this stuff? And Switzerland, the last time they had a war was, who knows?
Well, they've got a lot of the money, so they don't need
well, they don't need to,
but
the principle's there,
Indeed.
That's why it's legal not to be armed.
That's what.
That's where all
That's right, that's right. Yeah, just in case we come and take it back off of them.
Now there's it. So just to summarise for those who are listening at home, the point is basically the reason the Swiss are armed is they're protecting the money from...
Hey, well, let's hold the mirror up and let's do what they do then, innit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, Lexi, more from Lexi. Tons of comments.
I'm going to change it up a little bit here, okay?
Ooh.
Who here says wicked instead of yes? No? Does anyone say, oh, that's sick, instead of yes? No?
Wrong age group.
No. Well, Dory from Bridgend hates it when youngsters say wicked. It annoys me, she says.
Well, there we go.
Thank you for that.
So, thumbs down with sick, thumbs down with wicked.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, just stick to yes. Anyone watch X Factor? Okay. Geraldine, her son was on X Factor and did very well for 2 years in a row and even got to Sharon Osbourne's house. But Geraldine says they have psychologists, apparently, at the side of the stage and they play with your head.
Oh.
Apparently, yes.
So effectively... So the reason these X Factor people are so psycho is that they've been charged up by the sort of psychoanalysts in the wings. Well, there we go. We don't have any of those here, by the way, so you're all right.
Simon says there's a move towards federalism in conjunction with creating... Oh, here we go. Creating our own common law courts. What, if any, impact would that have on nullifying the Magna Carta, bearing in mind the original charter was between the people and the monarchy? And that's from Simon from Croydon.
Oh, I think that sounds like a pause for an answer.
I mean, between the people and the monarchy, that was the bit that I got there. So who are the people and who is the monarchy? Two parties to a contract, that makes it quite interesting. But like I say, is most stuff, I try not to delve into too much detail. I don't really like detail. It's very boring, usually, to be honest. I think very simply, right and wrong. Just think like a kid.
If I can just say, which is sort of on that issue, but a little bit aside, this public inquiry with the paedophilia, which they've not been able to get anyone to sort out because they're all up to their necks in it, right?
Yeah.
This is the moment when we could say, well, tell you what, we'll get someone like Michael Mansfield maybe directing it, but we want a grand jury of us to sort it out. And that's where we would get the grand jury put back in where it should be, because it's never been taken away. They can't take away common law rights. All they do is cover them up with a sheet and say they're not listened to anymore.
Sounds good.
Hey, what's the point?
Bill Maloney and I have a jury. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we like it.
Where are we going?
Yeah.
I think, just so you mentioned earlier, where we kind of went through a phase of about a year, 2 years, nothing was really happening. And I truly believe we've kind of went through that milestone about a year ago, where non-stop we're just hearing something else collapsing, another whole bunch of pedos here, exposed here, and all over the place. There's so much stuff going on that... it's too difficult to say that it's not all over. I think it's all over the place. And it's
Well, I mean, when you see on page 4 or 5 of the Mail the fact that Leon Britton is accused of paedophilia, what? Oh, and that's why he held the document back. But it wasn't on the front page. Yeah, you imagine at any time in your lives, when the previous Home Secretary would have been accused of holding back a file because he may have possibly been in it. What?
It would never hit...
section about that big, you know what I mean? The
official Secrecy Act kind of kicks in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Better we keep this one quiet.
I've got more from Rachel, Lancashire. Quite a long one here. She says, why, if we murder, do we get sent to prison? But the government can introduce Liverpool Pathways and the assisted suicide bill and get away with it. How can a qualified registered carer whose mother was denied chemo at the RLI hospital twice and drips once and at St John's Hospice be denied access or basic rights? They were stopping visitors, including herself. Why are the authorities allowed to get away with total hypocrisy? It's happening to other people. The new hospice movement is a prison regime / detention centre?
Can I answer that one?
Oh, go on. Yes.
So really, there was two things you were mentioning in there. So the lady who was actually saying it, she was just speaking normal English speak. So we understood what she's saying. But actually, what was going on in there was something completely different. So the Crown is making claims. It's a bit difficult for the Crown to do that. So they're making complaints, claims, and trying to move that across and skirt over and try and name certain property and the jurisdiction over that to dictate and say, well, you know what? We're the owner of that legal fiction and we're going to do this, we're going to inject this, and we're going to remove this medication. But in theory, that actually makes sense. Because if you thought up until then that was real, then a lot of bad stuff's going to happen to you. But in reality, a lot of stuff is about, I think, I've forgotten which president it was in America, who released slavery back in, or Lincoln. Interesting thing that how he released the slaves, if anybody watched the film recently, was about property and property rights. So he stopped calling them slaves because they had the jurisdiction over that. But they started saying, well, no, well, actually, I just see my property. What, that slave? No, that's my property. Oh, and by the way, I have rights, I'm a man. And when I have rights, I have the right to use it and enjoy it. And guess what? You're trespassing on that. So you better start releasing it. So really, I mean, I use that in a court context as well. So in there's actually a mixture of two different conversations, a lawful one and a legal one. So although she's explaining it in her lawful common law language, but actually what was going on there was anything but lawful. So she needs to make it, again, I kind of point inwards and say, right, now, how can I put it in a way that makes them understand, get lost? What's a nice way of putting it? And usually the property one or something in that angle usually kind of helps.
Yeah, no, bang on. And I'll tell you what, the reason they get away with it is because of the expression mens rea. And mens rea means criminal intent. So they have no criminal intent. That's why these clowns get cults. So you've got the medical profession. The doctor believes when he's prescribing you something that he's doing the right thing for you. So he's got not the mens rea. He hasn't got no criminal intent. The nurse who's injecting you, really forcing you to have that injection because she wants to vaccinate you, she hasn't got no criminal intent. We're just dealing with a cult. And so the mens rea, because ultimately doing a criminal act is the actus reus. I mean, I'm not trying to use, but that's the act in question, yeah?
Yeah.
But the mens rea is the intent behind the act. And if all of these parties, that's why the police, the bailiffs, all of these parties, they know nothing. They're like Manuel in Fawlty Towers, right? Yeah. They know nothing, right? Okay. So
but who are you casting as John Cleese? That's the important thing.
Well, I don't know, actually. No, you look more the part. I'll be Manuel.
Wait, thank you so much.
But that's where the situation is, Alex. And you know, the mens rea. They take the mens rea out of it, and well, look, man, it just happened, you know. But I mean, ultimately, again, we're onto them because I'm using language like that, and everybody here knows what I'm saying. I agree. But here we go, a room full of people, and you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, brilliant. No, that's right. Exactly. We're dealing with criminals and cults. Okay.
Right.
And look, either we're dealing with people in society. We're dealing with guys who are pretending to be judges. Either they are criminally complacent, right? They're either criminals or they're clowns, right? Who don't know what they're doing, right? No in-betweens. And if they're clowns, then we don't want you there. It's a bit like walking into the Houses of Parliament and saying, right, how many of you lot, steam in there one day, all of us, how many of you lot know about fractional reserve banking? All of you, but in the Houses of Parliament, all of you don't know about it to the right. Right, get out, you muppets, you don't know what you're talking about. All of you to the left, there's cattle trucks out there, off you go. And it's that simple, really. You know what I mean? It really is, you know.
I mean, it simply is either way. Either way.
If you boil it down, if you boil it down, because the trouble with them is they've relied on our ignorance. They've relied on the public ignorance. And look, we've got the internet.
This is a totally different era than, you know, our forefathers beforehand. They only had to go by what their neighbour told them, or in a book if they were that lucky to be able to read. and we've got everything on our side. I mean, just going back to the doctor thing, the interesting thing about that was, if you look at the way that's been set up, it's set up in a legalese format. They can only go by prescribed format. They can only give certain drugs. It's all expressed. They can't come outside to the left, to the right in a grey area. It's all or nothing. And that's a very legalese kind of system. Yeah. So to me, that makes it quite interesting, because you also knew the set of rules that they should be applying for. And if they're not in that, I think GMC.
And I'll tell you what, right? Everyone here who I've never even met, right? I know that if I meet you in the bar after, we'll have a conversation and we'll get on, okay? We've got a common understanding, okay? Yeah. A commonality, right? I don't need to, but I know that just by being with you, okay? Imagine this show 25 years ago, everybody would be embarrassed. You know what I mean? Oh, God. Are they going to accept what I'm saying? They go, hey, look, we know the score. And everybody here has got a commonality. And that's what common sense is. That's what common law is. That's what they've got, right? Again,
I think there's a long history. I mean, going back to Indian times, if you start looking up the history on various different empires and stuff, and it was always divide and conquer.
Yeah.
So we did it in religions. We still do it in religions now. This is crazy. If you believe in a God, what do you care if it's brown or white? I don't care. Believe in a God. That means you're good, and that means you're good. Brilliant. That's a happy world. But then we have the other divide and conquer. Oh, I like the red football team. Oh, I like the blue one. Oh, well, I don't like you. Yeah. I've never met you before in my life. It's divide and conquer in so many ways. It's just a joke.
I'll tell you what, you're saying that about India, because when we took that mindset to India, the Indians understood it far better than we did. And so a lot of Indian people I know still understand, in some respects, common law better than a lot of the people out there who are watching EastEnders.
Managed by statute, basically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But maybe we were overeducated here.
Yeah. Well, we are by this show. This show overeducates us.
I am conscious of the time that we've got just 25 minutes left, so more from Lexi. We're mining a rich vein here, as it were.
Well, Natalie from Glasgow says, whenever I discuss common law in Scotland, people say it doesn't apply, as Scottish law is different, and when the Magna Carta was formulated, Scotland was a separate country from England. So does common law apply in Scotland?
Common law, the definition is the customs of the people. That's exactly what it is. And guess what? It will be different here than it is in Scotland and than it is over in America, because each customs of a different country is slightly different. So does that exist? I think so.
And next time you go through customs, explain that to them. Oh, our custom is this. Yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, again, words again, yeah? We go through customs. Well, they're supposed to be putting our customs on hold at that port. That's why you have a passport. It's not a passport, it's a port pass. Right. And if you read, I haven't got one with me, okay, because I wasn't expecting this.
Very interesting, read the first page.
But if you open your passport, and I've done this, okay, and I know Darren Diogi done this, okay, with the police, right? Yep. When the police pulled him in the car, and he issued them his papers, which is like in Nazi Germany. And if you open the first page, you read it, it says that, you know, the Queen has stated that the port control should now offer assistance to Her Majesty's servant and do all this, okay? And if you read the inside of your passport, the first page, just turn it open, all of a sudden you'll see that they've got to move you on. They've got to, but of course, oh no, well that's just a load of writing that nobody takes any notice of. Yeah, I mean, well if that's the case, chuck the whole thing in the bin, isn't it? But yeah.
Maritime law.
Maritime law. Yeah, I mean.
Birth certificate.
Yeah, that's right. Birth of your boat. That's right. Well, that's.
What we were going to say is we're going to obviously we're going to have to filter these answers through because you're not being heard out there on the radio and TV. So we'll have to work out how we'll handle this. So
I'll come over and visit you.
Yeah.
Sorry, chaps.
Right. Anyway, there's more.
Oh, yes, there is, yes. Steve from North Lancashire says, my understanding of common law is simple. Do not harm. Panel, please clarify if a statute law, Act of Parliament, is oppressive and does harm. Is that unlawful due to common law?
They're two different belief systems.
Right, okay.
So two can coexist at the same time. Now, if you believe the Crown statute and it's real and you want to go down there, then that's good for you. But it's fictitious. It's a ghost. You shouldn't be listening to ghosts. If you do, normal people think you're a bit crazy. So really, you should be living in the real world, and the real world says harm. So all the time, like I say, is in the court cases, you should always say, and in fact, you mentioned earlier, you can't put a statute to get rid of a common law.
No.
You can't get, it doesn't exist, it makes no sense
Statute
whatsoever.
does not trump common law.
It's the other way
Common
around.
law trumps all.
But if you went into a court case and you said, well, actually, you know, this is all really nice and fancy, and I like that fancy dress that you've got on and yours, that's really nice, but all I know is common law, and this is a common law country. Yes, it is. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so where's the harm? Where's the man? Where's the man I injured? Because you know what? This case doesn't need to drag on forever. You know what? I need to compensate that guy. Bring that guy forth here, because he needs to be pressing the record. And usually, if there is a fictitious guy who's made a complaint, it all falls to pieces. Right. Because your belief system, while both coexist at the same time, you've brought your belief system into their belief system, and yours trumps theirs. And then the complaint, which is a weak form, a complaint, you've made a claim. And if you've made a claim, that's it, it's all over.
And if they need confirmation of that in their statutory world, then there's an ancient statute which is still in force, and I'd say to everybody, check it out. It's called Statute the Fifth. 1315 it was made, so it was only made, I don't know, 18 years after you know, the Houses of Parliament, whatever, right? And Statute the Fifth clearly states that basically common law can't be superseded. And that's inside their own. And if you check it out and check on the Gov website, you'll find that Statute the Fifth is still in force. It hasn't been repealed. So ultimately, you can use their own acts against them. So.
Fantastic.
But like I say, it's going back to my injunction case against me. So it was 35, 40 minutes long. So the judge did his summary and spoke 35 minutes of statutes. And the barrister was writing it down, and the solicitor was writing it down, saying, yeah, brilliant, we'll write that for case law, brilliant. And then he said, right, now we're going to talk about common law. So the barrister everybody puts their pen down. I think, well, forget that, doesn't exist anyway. And he said, well, clearly the guy didn't think he did any wrong, actually. That's it, case discharged. And they were just gobsmacked. And they said, just 1 point against 35 minutes of and it all disappeared.
Wow.
So it does exist.
Steve, again from North Lancashire, says, do we have any top quality, professional, independent solicitor firms who are Mason-free?
Let's have a laugh here.
Who cares?
No. No. Look, the reason is, and look, I don't say that like, they're all trained in certain programming, right, okay? And this is the problem, right? And this is what the work that I'm doing, Mr. Ebert, this is the problem. They are trained, first and foremost, any of you get a lawyer, first question, are you an officer of the court? They'll say, yes. Do you work for me? Yes. Which comes first? They're officers of the court. Now, as officers of the court, they're not supposed to undermine the court process. So they're not allowed, if you've got a procedural error, unless you give them a load of money, because they'll take a big headache, they won't take it, because they're undermining the court process. And a lot of these guys might be really good, keen blokes, but they're not going to challenge the mechanism, the statutory mechanism, which is paying their money.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got my pension on this. I've got a holiday home. You know,
why kill the goose that feeds you?
This is it. You know, they're not going to cook the golden goose. Yeah, which is what's. So no, there isn't. And I mean, we have lawyers working with us now because they can see the tides turning. They can see that, like, they've had to understand. Myself and Barley, and I say this, I know Barley, but I mean, we've come to this looking at it from a common sense perspective, which is common law. Okay? And then we've been introduced to statutes and acts, and we've sort of interpreted them, right? These guys are the other way around, because they weren't trained as a kid to understand common law, which is really simple: no harm, no injury, no fraud in your contracts. They've been indoctrinated with a mindset, and now they're trying to fight outside that box. We've had lawyers, and they've got the best interests in the world, but like, look, at the end of the day, it was said that in every great revolution, the lawyers are the first to the guillotine. And unfortunately, I can't really argue with that.
But it is almost like a golf club. So it's a members only, and I've gone there and I said, oh, do you mind if I come in and be a member? I don't like this wall and I don't like the... And they just tell you, do one. and what it is what's happening is that it's their own golf course, it's their own rules. Who am I to go to their house to do it? Ah, right, that's right. So if I want my own golf course with this colour wallpaper and this colour curtains, I go open my own.
Yeah.
And no one in the world can stop you from doing that. That's just basic, common, like you say, common sense. I try not to remember too many facts and figures and just go in armed with common sense, because everything falls to pieces. Like a basic court procedure. Yeah. Where's the man I done wrong? I've been listening to this dribble for the last half an hour, but is anybody actually at some point going to present the man I've done wrong today? It's very quiet. Okay, let the record reflect. No man came forward that I did any wrong. And to sit there quiet and wait for the whole thing to finish and fall to pieces at the end.
Wow. All right. I see.
I've got one more, and I've got to pass this down. Pass it down to Alex. Yes. Penny from Cumbria says the Queen has broken the coronation oath. Two presenters today spoke of her like she looks after the people. What does Alex think about this?
Sorry, I'm just reading this. Thank God. What do I think about what? Sorry?
The Queen's broken a coronation oath.
Oh.
So maybe that's one to just digest whilst I go to this side of the room.
Yes. Why did she sign the coronation oath on top of the page instead of below the actual statement? Interesting. Right.
The Queen is a title. The Queen, that's
right,
probably true.
Can I just remind you that what you're saying will not be on the show, and it will just sound like that we've got blank air. So apologies for that. Lexi will come and see you now, as it were. We only have 15 minutes of our 90 left. Essential research information for you. Please make time to research the truth about the Windsors. So this ties in perhaps what we've just been saying. They are one of the family bloodlines who are ruling the planet, and it is obvious that something is amiss. The Queen has broken a coronation oath more than 1,000 times. And here's a website for you to look at, www.truth.net. jartruth.net. Her family is also linked to Jimmy Savile, and don't we now know it? There we go.
Well, if I can just say, right, okay, it's not my area, right? Okay, but I know Anthony Muad'Dib did his case based on. So maybe she isn't even the Queen because she wasn't sat on the stone. If we're going down that ceremonial basis, okay.
Right.
So I mean, again.
So you had to be sat on the stone.
Look, I'm not into all that, but I mean, if that's the mindset that we're dealing with, then maybe she ain't our Queen anyway. Who knows? You know, I mean, but again, if anyone wants to investigate that, then brilliant. That's what we need to do. Everyone needs to do their own investigation, their own research. Believe nothing. Don't believe anything I'm telling you. Go and research it. Anyone tells you. If your mother tells you something, it might be because she's been involved in a culture that has made her think that, And I know that from dealing with my own parents in life, and I know my children are doing the same with me. We don't believe nothing, so check it all out. The internet's there. We've a communal brain. We can all research, So, let's get on with it.
I'm just going to add into that, but Queen is a title. So for those who want to do this research, Elizabeth, and whatever the rest of her name is, whenever she fancies, but Elizabeth, the Queen, and the Crown are not one and the same. Because if they were, they'd just have one name. So all three are different entities. So don't automatically jump between the three unless you know who you're talking to. The Queen is meant to be a representative of the people. If you don't like that, then we should get together and say, you're fired, you're hired, and we should do that.
A new role for Lord Sugar.
Yeah, another one.
Yes.
You're fired.
Hey, I'll tell you what, and I've got a document here, actually, which proves what Barley's saying.
But one other quick thing I wanted to mention. You've got to be very careful what you ask for, because at the minute, the Queen, whoever that is actually, common law is kind of based around her. So if that, he, she, whoever the hell the Queen is, disappears, we're only left with code. If we're left with code, that's only statute. So you've got to be very, very careful what's going on in between there. And the Queen will get bashed all over the place. But until something else comes up to represent the common law, you know, there's going to have to be something along the way that kind of takes over that nicely. What's that other thing you said?
Otherwise we're stuck with corpus juris, which is French, right?
Yep.
There's French. I've got a document in here which is a writ, which is a fraudulent one. But when you read the writ, it says, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has commanded you to leave the property, right?
Yeah.
But Her Majesty Queen, it's all in block capitals. It's because the High Court enforcement officers, which aren't High Court enforcement officers. If anyone comes round and tells you they're High Court enforcement officers, it's bullshit. They work for a company called High Court Enforcement Officers Limited, right? So it's the same as if me and Barley set up a Grenadier Guards Limited. We call ourselves Grenadier Guards, even though we ain't got big furry hats on, right? But that's exactly what it is. And so what they've done is, with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II command you, it's a company. It's a company ordering you to do what they say. Corporatism, fascism.
I did a couple of funny stuff like that in the court itself, was where we've had that kind of scenario. We always say, oh, that's fine. So whoever Regina is, I'll allow the other side to have a break. We'll wait for her or him to come. And I have a common law right to question my accuser, but if I have done any wrong, you know what? We'll settle this really quick. I need to pay this man or woman some money. But the first thing I need to do is invoke that right, and let's give the Regina or the Queen or whoever it is that right to come and point the finger. And it will, again, it's the same old thing. It all falls to pieces. Because the Queen never actually attends anything.
No.
But it's interesting, if you don't put the words in a court official's mouth, and you say to them, and I've done this, and I've got to put this on the net one day, was I said, who's this Regina Vagina person? Who's that? And they said, oh, ha ha, it's Regina. Well, who's Regina? I remember reading a book in Italy or something. No, it's the Queen. Well, it can't be the Queen. It doesn't say the Queen. Oh, okay, but when you see Regina, it says... It means the Queen. So I said, oh, okay, so that's the Queen versus me. Yeah, okay. All right, but when it says Crown Court, who's the Crown? And they said, oh, okay, that just means us. Who are you? Oh, we work for the Queen. I went, oh, okay, that's lovely. In that case, one last question. Who's the judge? Oh, they're part of the judiciary. Who's the judiciary? Oh, they work for the Queen. So let me get this right. The Queen is prosecuting me in her own court with her own representative. Oh, that's because you don't want to pay. I went, no, hang on. That's just what you've just said. But like I said, is armed with just childish questions and common sense, everything falls to pieces.
Brilliant. I should say we've got about 10 minutes left, so I need to call Lexi back in. So if Lexi can call back in, and we're never going to get through the comments.
If I can just say this, right? I mean, that's why what Barley's been saying there, brilliant, right? And that's why they're all in fancy dress and all this nonsense, right? They're not the Crown Court, they're the Clown Court.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line, because they're Clown Court. They can't stand under their own position with any merit. So,
right. We should not interrupt this session of queries, or we may run out of time. So let's hear what we've got.
Okay. So, Harry Brown says, they were English, Scottish, Irish and Welsh at the Runnymede when Magna Carta was signed, so they were all represented and come under Magna Carta.
Ooh, righto.
Oh, we got a clap.
Oh, God, can I answer that one?
We've got 8 minutes, so very quickly.
Okay, very quickly. In any court case, when anybody tells you something, somebody has to testify. So if somebody told me that Guy said this, I'd say, oh, that's nice. You know what? I want Guy in on that stand and them to tell me. And it all falls to pieces.
Okay. The lovely Fraggle, yes, says, what would people do who haven't had to fight yet on a day-to-day basis? What would they do to understand... He's not very good at asking cohesive questions. To understand how to think the way that you guys do regarding common law, they haven't had to face the battles you have. How would they understand common law?
Engage in activity. So if there's someone getting evicted in your area, go to that meeting, just stand there, talk to people. You'll meet people like we've got in here now. You'll get an understanding. You're part of something. You're not sat on a keyboard, right, as a keyboard warrior, right? thinking that you're collating information that nobody in the world could possibly understand. Experience is the only thing that gives us
Indoctrinated education.
Exactly. So get on the front line and just go somewhere.
Learn what works.
Learn, yes.
Brill. Cade Jones, who I've always thought was a girl, but I found out today you're not, darling, and I apologise. Cade Jones, where in law is the cut-off level of idiots? And by that, I mean bailiffs, lawyers and police who don't know what we're talking about now.
Idiots, the word defined as an idiot, a judge called me an idiot, and it was the best thing that ever happened because that means they're unable to contract. So I try not to call them an idiot because that's not helping your case. But if you want to call me one, I'll do that all day.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If the word ignoramus, right? You're ignorant, right? Ignoramus actually means void contract. And so if you check that out in any of your dictionaries, ignoramus, void contract. So exactly what Barley's been saying there, yeah? Great, let them call us all the names they want, okay? Because all they're doing is, we're holding a mirror up to them and they're just exposing themselves.
Wow.
And that's all I've got.
Well, Doomwatch has had its first advert. I haven't set a rate for this advert, but there we go. It's nice that people would like to openly contract with me without hearing my terms. My terms are £1,000 for reading this out. Truth-seeking listeners, please watch YouTube, inverted commas, Royal Babylon, close inverted commas. And since that's £1,000 worth, I'll do it twice so you get your best value. Truth-seeking listeners, please watch YouTube, inverted commas, Royal Babylon, close inverted commas. So there we go. First advert, isn't it amazing? I'll take it in lager. I'll take it in lager. There we go. Anyway, gentlemen, so maybe a summary of the day, please, in terms of what you would hope people would go away with from having attended the conference in person.
We are all living in, as horrific as it may seem, right? And my family have been raped by this system, but we're living in interesting times, which is what the Chinese said, right? May you live in interesting times. This is wonderful. We've been put in this place because of who we are and what our experiences are, each one of us individually. And we're here for a reason, right? And the reason is we don't know. And that's the wonderful thing. There's it's the unknown and the unknowable, right? And we can always know the unknown, but we can never know the unknowable. But all we know is, right, we're here, it's happening, bring it on.
There we go. I was almost having a Donald Rumsfeld moment when you said that. It has to be said. There are certain knowns, but we don't know. And
the unknown and the unknowable. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I kind of hope that everybody kind of got the gist that there was two different societies, two different languages, but sibboliths, the same word having two meanings. So that hopefully, you know, people will go away and feel less fearful and do a bit of their own research. So they actually realise that when they're actually acting privately and when they're acting publicly, when they're being drawn into that realm and when they want to bring them back. I kind of hope that it's very difficult to teach somebody that it took me a year or two to learn, but I think, you know, hopefully it gives people an idea and say, well, you know, it happened to that crazy guy. I must be able to pick that up. And, you know, as long as people don't fear a fictitious monster which doesn't exist, and they start to realise, well, there's only me and him. I can only go to him and poke him. Oh, he's real. He's real. And that's where we want to do. Every time, it's not a big monster that's out there. There's a guy that came to my door and spoke to me. Brilliant. Right, you want a contract? Brilliant, let's have a contract. But hopefully that kind of gives people some kind of idea of why you shouldn't be living in fear. Because like the main media, that's all they dish out. 9 times out of 10, you should be scared. The bailiffs are coming, this, that and the other.
And everything's got a shadow. Everything's got a shadow. And so when the bank account, you check your bank account now, it's got a shadow account. You check the government, it's got a shadow. Everything's got a shadow, as we all have. Yeah. And that's what they've been dealing with. And of course, people are more frightened of the shadows, but we're going to shine a light in them shadows. So, you know, off we go.
Wow. Well, we're near our time, so let's first of all hear your appreciation of our guests, Barley. And Guy. And you've seen her live, our TJ, Lexi Manning. Which just leaves me to say thank you very much for coming back and ruining your dinner to be back in time to see us here on Do Much. We'll be back with you again tomorrow at hopefully nearer to 8 p.m. start than it has been tonight.